We're back. Yes, we are. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. He's Steve Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis, hanging out with you. Yeah, Gunner, this was, we both do our post-game shows, right? And it's a late night to begin with. And I know you just hustled back up from AC this morning. Or did you come back last night? You came back this morning,
drove back this morning, yeah.
Right.
I got back home at about 11:30.
Okay. So, it's one of those things like if they win, if it's a good game, you're a little less tired. You're a little less, like beaten down.
Right.
They lose like the way that they lost, man. And I'm sure every Eagles fan is feeling it. If they're in the office, if they're working from home, whatever you're doing, if you're just out and about, you got the day off, hopefully. This is one you feel like this is not one you just brush off pretty easily. It's going to take a minute to recover from this bad boy.
So I wanted to ask you off the top of the show, but we got right into the X's and O's. So how are you doing at this moment? When we left the airwaves on Friday, and I tried my best all week long to get you to see the D-Gun way of life in terms of controlling one's adrenaline. Now, I don't know what you did Saturday, and I text you Sunday morning with an explosion emoji. All right, Rob, now it's time to unleash all that fury. So how are you emotionally at this point? Are you completely drained? Did you save something? Where are you?
Let me put it to you this way. Drained is a good way to put it. I feel like, honest to God, probably like midway through the fourth quarter,
right?
I turned to John Ritchie last night and I said to him, dude, I feel like I'm playing in this game. I'm so stressed. I'm so exhausted from the twists and turns. And I feel that way today. Like I feel absolutely beaten down, man. Like yesterday, I really was like good in terms of stacking things to do just to bide time.
Okay.
I really did. I mean, it was fine. But I tell you, by like, I'd say about 2:30, maybe 4 hours before kickoff, I couldn't handle it much longer.
Fit to be tied.
Yeah. So I'm hurting, man. I'm hurting. This was not an easy one because here's the thing. I know how this works. This is going to be one that years and years and years from now, we're going to reference. We're just going to reference. Like we're going to go back and say, man, they had such an unbelievable opportunity in Super Bowl 57 because these things are not promised. It was miraculous that they were possibly going to get 2 in 5 years. That doesn't happen that way. Think about this. They went 57 years between championships, 57 years between championships. The Flyers haven't won one since 1975, and we sit here in 2023. The Sixers since 83, 40 years ago, okay? The Phillies went from 80 to 08. They went 28 years. So when you are sitting there on the precipice up 10 points at halftime, you need to close it out because there are no guarantees. I'll say one last thing on this subject. You go back 5 years ago. You had Doug Peterson as a head coach.
Yeah.
You had Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, a lot of other players on that roster. They're all gone. This changes really fast, especially in this league. So nothing is promised. Does it look good with Jalen Hurts? Do you feel good about Nick Sirianni? Do you like some of the other younger players they have? Yeah, but there's no guarantees that you get this close again anytime soon.
Here's what I feel good about for the Eagles. Even if Kelsey decides to retire, the offensive line is in good hands, okay? Mm-hmm. The wide receiving core is in good hands. The quarterback's position is in excellent hands. The tight end position is in excellent hands. And you look at the entire NFC conference, the way it stands right now, this Eagles team, just from an offensive perspective, has a really good shot of getting back to the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
The defense is a huge question mark right now because once you give that dude Hurts his money between $40 and $50 million a year, who do you strategically target to bring back on that defense? Because a lot of those guys, because of the numbers they put up in the regular season, there are GM scouting departments that have been sitting back critiquing them. And Rob, as you know, when you have the type of success this Eagles team had this year, everybody else wants to pick off your personnel.
Yeah.
So all these bargain basement now to me, Kaiser White had a bad game yesterday. James Bradbury had a bad game. TJ Edwards had a bad game. Okay. I think Cox is gone unless he comes back at like less than half of what they're paying him now. Hargrave, who knows what he's thinking in terms of does he want to come back here? Sue may go back into retirement. Linville Joseph may call it a career.
Mhm.
Okay. So you got some major decisions. Now, you have a young Jordan Davis. You have a young N'Kobe Dean. Those guys are going to have to play. You're going to have to play. You're equipped with 2 first-round picks. You're going to have to get younger. And people might say, oh, man, that's going to be the death sentence for us. Really? Because we just watched the Kansas City defense with youth all across its defense hold up and help their team win a Super Bowl. The Kansas City offense didn't win that game by itself.
Right.
The defense made the necessary plays when it had to. It didn't make consistent plays. It made the necessary plays when it had to, especially in the second half. And it has a coordinator that knows how to mix and match as well as anybody in the league. Spagnuolo is one of the best in the game.
He's won 3 as an assistant. That's not a coincidence.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you? And he's been with Andy Reid now 4 years, which means he's been there for all 3 Super Bowls with Andy Reid. Okay.
Yep. And won with the Giants, where he slayed Tom Brady and, the Eagle Empire. Yep.
So what does that tell you about the quality and the depth? Now, we see a lot of teams that go to a youth movement and they pay a price for that next year. They pay a price.
Yep.
Not this team, not this. And when you talked about this Friday, and I was like, wow, how did I miss this? The 3 losses Kansas City had were by a grand total of 10 points.
Yeah.
They could have won more than 14 games.
Yeah, and that's why I never understood how the Eagles were going to beat them by 2 touchdowns. They don't, they lose, they barely lose, and it's been that way all year. They've been a dominant football team as much as, the Eagles. The Eagles had a great regular season. So did Kansas City. They were 16-3 also.
Yes. And they played number one, their regular season schedule was tougher than the Eagles. Their division was tougher than the Eagles. Okay. Yep. And their playoff opponents were tougher than the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And they found a way to beat them all.
They were more battle tested. And it showed in the second half.
No question about it.
Yep.
And I know people are hurting right now. And I'm looking at the chat and all the people who were for other teams, who Eagles fans lambasted when they ousted those teams. Now they're taking their shots back at the Eagles. The chat is hilarious right now. Mm-hmm. People going back and forth. But you know what? It is what it is. You have those moments in the sun, and sometimes you burn in the sun. And the Eagles burned. They burned at the worst opportune time to burn.
Yeah. So just go back to Mahomes for a minute here, Derek, and while we dig into the Eagles defensively. So you remember they played last year, and I understand like both teams were vastly different. The Chiefs had Tyreek Hill. The Eagles were just a way different team in general in terms of personnel, and right. they were just starting to kind of figure things out. Nonetheless, so they played Mahomes twice, once in the regular season last year, once in last night.
Yeah.
So in those 2 games, he's 45 for 57.
Jeez.
He's got a 133 passer rating to go with 8 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a 78.9 completion percentage. That is destruction. Okay. And by the way, he's doing it in some shape or form injured. I don't think he's as bad as it was maybe made out to be, but he was, he's still not 100%.
Dude, when Trey Edwards tackled him in the first half and twisted his ankle, and he came up grimacing the way he did and very quickly hobbled to the sideline, I thought his day was done. Yep. And I turned to Seth and Mike Missinelli and I said, in all the years I've covered football, I don't ever remember watching a team that I covered in big games go through 2 consecutive games where the starting quarterbacks are knocked out of the games. Because I'm thinking Mahomes is done for the day. But kudos to Rick Burkholder. Rick Burkholder is the best of the best in terms of trainers when it comes to getting players ready for a game. I don't know what they did to Mahomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what they shot Mahomes up with at halftime. But he came out and he did the same thing he did against Cincinnati. You remember the big run he had against Cincinnati that helped set up that field goal? Yeah. He rips off a 26-yard run against a 5-man front. 26-yard run. Did he look hurt to you when he ran?
No.
He looked hurt to me.
No. He did it a couple times last night.
Yes. No. Yeah, he wasn't running with a limp.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, look, there was a lot that went on in that game. Like I said, nobody stepped up. And the other part of it is it wasn't just the passing game. Kansas City rushed 26 times, 158 yards. That's 6.1 yards per carry last night. I mean, That's completely unacceptable. Like, all right, so if maybe a team's having success in one aspect, you got to take the other thing away. Eagles couldn't take either thing away. And again, a lot of this, Derek,
Yeah.
is second half. It's not just the first half.
No. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at my numbers, and Kansas City had, in terms of rushing yards, Kansas City had 39 yards rushing at halftime. 39 yards.
Yep.
They finished
Yep.
with a $158, right? Okay. So technically in the second half, they ran for 117 yards in the last 30 minutes against this defense. And they were running through some Pacheco, McKinnon. And we were talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire being activated. He didn't even play.
No, he didn't sniff the field.
He didn't even sniff the field. They went with McKinnon, and they were gouging him on the running game. This kid, Pacheco, I don't know how everybody missed him for 6 rounds. He didn't go until the 7th round.
Yeah.
That kid runs as hard as anybody in the National Football League, breaking tackles. He runs like somebody stole his last Jolly Rancher. You know, I'm telling you. You're talking about running. He's only like 5'11". He's 216, but he doesn't look that big. You talk about physical and inflicting pain when he runs. Now, C.J. Gardner-Johnson stood him up on that one run. He blew him up.
Yep.
That was the Eagles' best defensive play of the game.
It was the only one that sticks out in a positive way.
That was
the only one.
One play.
Derek, let me run through these drives. Let's go. So the Chiefs go 10 plays, 75 yards, touchdown out of the chute. 9 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 3 plays, 5 yards. That's the punt return. Easy one.
Right.
12 plays, 66 yards, and a field goal, which is easily a touchdown had they chosen to score a touchdown. Okay. So that's every possession they had. They only had 4 possessions in the second half. They were methodical. They were, other than the short one off of the punt, time consuming.
Yep.
Which kept the Eagles. It was the old Washington, blueprint where you keep the Eagles offense off the field.
That's right.
And they score touchdowns every time at will. Like, not one time can you get a stop. Not once can you force a punt or create a turnover or get a sack. Not one time in the whole damn game. Terrible.
And here's the thing, Rob. You look at the Chiefs' third down conversions, which was unlike Kansas City and unimpressive. They didn't have to be. They weren't in many third down situations.
Right.
Second down, they pick up another first down. Second down again, another first down. They weren't in many third down situations.
Nope.
You didn't stress that offense at all the last 30 minutes of the game.
Not in the least.
And to this day, you're right, Rob. Even if the Eagles come back and win a Super Bowl next year, I will not get over the fact that your defensive coordinator could not make the adjustments. Not once. He refused to blitz, and the one or two times he tried to blitz, they got burned, and so he wouldn't blitz again. His blitzes were too sporadic compared to Spagnuolo playing with a bunch of kids. He kept coming. He made that Eagles franchise quarterback move the entire game.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. You made him move off his spot the entire game. How many times did he throw the ball away? How many times did we watch him pirouette one way and go back the other? Tremendous athleticism, but it messed up the timing and continuity of that particular pass play.
No, I agree. Listen, it's a huge issue, man. That's for sure. And Chris D, how to, and we'll get into free agency in a little bit, but how do you prioritize this thing in the offseason? I think there's a lot of different things you have to look at. Some of this is going to depend on who leaves, right? If you lose a lot in your interior, I don't know what Jordan Davis is, frankly. Okay. I like Milton Williams.
Yeah.
But if Fletcher Cox and Hargrave and Sue and Joseph are gone, you're going to have to think about that, even though you addressed it this past season in the draft. I'm going to combine the draft and free agency, but that's an area I'm going to look at. If Brandon Graham isn't back, and I think there's a fair chance he'll be back on a bit of a discount. Well, we'll see.
Agree.
But you have to look at edge rusher always, because that's such a critical position. You're going to have to address running back at some level, and because I think Miles Sanders is going to be gone. You need a third wide receiver. Then you go to the other side of the ball. Man, you might be losing Bradbury. You might be losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You might be losing Epps. if it depends on who you lose, like you're going to have to prioritize corner or safety, or you could lose Kaiser White and TJ Edwards. Then all of a sudden you're
Yep.
looking at linebacker.
Yep.
So like, I'm not trying to duck Chris's question. It's a very legit one, but it could go a lot of different ways, man.
Absolutely. And I'm sure Howie's already sat down and identified, number one, what are we going to offer Jalen? And number two, who are we going to try to keep? You know what? When we come back from our next break, here's what we should do. Now, we identified there's only 4 defensive starters under contract at the conclusion of this season. I want you to give me your top 3. I want you to sit in Howie Roseman's seat for a moment.
Okay.
Give me your top 3 priorities on defense to keep, and I'll give you my top 3.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's dig into the free agency thing when we come back, because there's a lot of different ways that you could go with this. And look, you get a little bit of a bump in the salary cap, right?
Yep.
You're gonna have a little bit of that. That'll help you a little bit. But Derek, in a lot of ways, now you're set up for the future with Jalen and with some other pieces, but in a lot of ways, you went for it this year, which meant it was a lot of one-year deals.
Absolutely.
And you knew other guys like TJ Edwards were coming up on their contract. Brandon Graham, you kind of knew that. So it was a combination of a lot of things. That's why, again, this is why, as much as it hurts to hear it today, because everybody's licking their wounds. I get it. But you had to get this one, because there's a lot of uncertainty going forward with this team because of the sheer number, the volume of guys that are up this year.
Yeah. The thing I like, once Howie went all in, and they got so close, they got within 3 points of completing what the mission was. As they come out of this thing now, they're not in bad shape. They're not like the Rams who sold the farm and they got to rebuild this thing with no draft picks. The Eagles are in great position with draft picks. They don't have any dead cap money with a lot of these one and done contracts. And Howie's going to be a player in free agency. That I promise you. Mm-hmm. To what degree, we don't know yet. But I guarantee you, Howie and Jeffrey Lurie and that scouting department, they already have identified who they want to keep on defense. It's just a matter of, do the numbers match up in terms of salary cap? Because even though they're going to get a bump in free agency, a lot of that bump is going to be taken up by that franchise quarterback they've got to pay.
That's the thing.
And you better pay him now. You better pay him now.
I don't think there's any way that the organization allows this to get into his last year of his deal next year. I don't see that at all. That's not the way they operate.
Because it could go up next year even more.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you just don't want that friction, right? You don't want what went on Lamar Jackson this past year. You don't need that, number one. Number two, the longer this goes on, Gunner, and he gets into next year, and let's say he's playing really well early in the season, that you're right, that price just goes up, 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 up. Like, he helped himself. Not that he needed to do a ton to help himself. He was already going to get paid, but he helped himself more last night. On the grandest of stages, he delivered.
And the good thing about it is, now they don't have to franchise tag him because he's still under a rookie contract. But do you want him to come back play? Do you want to tick off him and his representation and make that kid come back and play under a rookie deal in the fall? Because the negotiations in 2024 will get more tedious, especially if he puts up similar numbers to what he did this year.
Yep.
It's going to get worse. So you better appease him now while you can.
This will get done in the offseason. The Eagles are good with that kind of stuff. That's for sure.
You did it for Carson Wentz. You did it for Wentz.
Yep.
And it turned out to be a bust.
You did it with Donovan a bunch of times too. You re-upped him before you got there. So their history is they get these things done. Yeah. All right. Let's do that. We'll dig into the free agents and we'll prioritize when we come back. In the segment after that, we'll dig into the offense a little bit and some of the things that went on. And you have both Steichen and Gannon, Derek, interviewing today with respective teams. Steichen with the Colts, Gannon with the Cardinals. They're both interviewing today, so we'll talk about that as well. So we got a lot of ground to cover. When we come back, we will do so, and we'll look at the guys who were up for the Eagles who may not be back here next year. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Right now, we're going to talk about Pro Action Restoration. You have a home, you have a business, you have a property you may own. And, nobody wants this to happen. Nobody likes it. And it is very difficult. But if fire, if water damage, smoke, mold remediation, mold damage, whatever ends up happening to any of those places that you may own or be involved in, you got a tough decision to make. What do you do? How do you clean it up? Well, Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week. I can tell you that because I called them on a Saturday. They got right out. They fixed the problem. The price was right, and the crew was clean and great. And it was a really, really the type of experience that you're thankful for when you're going through a trying time. They are licensed, bonded, fully insured. Pro Action Restoration has been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades, and they will work in conjunction with your insurance company also. So again, it could be water, it could be fire, it could be smoke, it could be mold remediation. You name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.